Two new gun control measures are now in effect. While Washington was focused on Syria, these new rules came by way of executive actions by the president. One rule curbs the import of military surplus weapons, more than 50 years old. The other is designed to stop people from registering guns to a trust or corporation rather than as an individual who would have to undergo a background check. The NRA says these rules are going to do nothing to actually decrease gun violence, and I think our next guest agrees. Welcome back, Texas Governor Rick Perry. Good to see you, sir.
It's good to be with you, Shannon. Thank you very much.
All right, these are just two in a series of executive actions that the White House pledged that it was going to take, and it has been rolling them out, sometimes rather quietly, and not involving Congress. What's your take?
Well, this is just a continuation of how this administration operates when it comes to this issue. They disregard the Constitution, the Second Amendment, and they go around Congress to go do what they want to do, and goes right into the face of the Second Amendment of the United States. These will absolutely do nothing to stop any violent crimes. As a matter of fact, there was a Harvard study out. You would think the president might take a look at a Harvard study and go, aha, that said that these gun control measures have nothing to do and have no effect on these violent crimes. We have the ability to deal with these, and we've talked about a lot of different ways to make sure that these criminals, they're not going to pay any attention to laws. They could care less what the president says. Putting law enforcement in the position, putting private citizens in the position to defend themselves when the evil ones show up on their streets or in their schools, that's how you stop these violent crimes, not by passing another executive order or another law that does absolutely nothing when it comes to stopping that type of activity.
Why do you think the focus on these kinds of things? Because, my estimation is, and I haven't seen any other evidence to the contrary, and we've looked for it, is that these kind of laws aren't going to really impact people who are committing crimes. There aren't criminals on the streets who are going to go and set up a trust or corporation to then fraudulently buy a firearm and then go use it to commit crimes. It doesn't sound, it doesn't pass the smell test.
Well, and I think this clearly goes to the face of trying to impinge people's constitutional rights. But it really gets back to more of how this president functions, how he sees himself. He thinks he can give a speech. He thinks that he knows how to deal with these issues, whether it's issues in the Middle East, our foreign policy, or whether it's something as important as our Second Amendment rights in this country. He thinks he's right. The sad thing is that this president is wrong, not only in his foreign policy approach, but how do you deal with the constitutional rights of the people of this country.
All right, I want to ask you about redistricting. There's been a big, long legal battle over the maps drawn by the Texas legislature. You have been accused by the Justice Department of, and other critics who say that they have racist motives or underpinnings, but a federal court gave you a win this week. Looks like those maps are going to be good for at least the 2014 elections, even if maybe the bigger fight over these isn't over.
Well, and this goes, again, this president disregards what the judicial system says. It disregards what our Constitution says. It disregards what the people of the state of Texas says. He thinks he's right. He thinks he's right on a lot of issues, of which, the fact of the matter is our Constitution, our judicial system says, no, Mr. President and Eric Holder, you are not correct on this. But that doesn't stop him to continue to file suit, to join in these lawsuits, and to be basically just a nuisance, if you will, to the people of the state of Texas in this case as we go forward, putting together our redistricting plans that the courts have found to be appropriate. So, I wish you would take a break on this and focus on things that are really important to the people of America, like getting this country back working again, putting policies in place that will free up folks from overtaxation, overregulation. Getting Americans back working again would be a lot better place to put your focus, Mr. President.
Well, I want to ask you about something you've had success with in Texas. I know you're marking 10 years of very important tort reform, which caps the damages that people can win in certain malpractice lawsuits. How has it worked there in Texas? Is it something that you think other states should try as well?
Well, you know me, I'm a big believer at the 10th Amendment that this isn't something that the federal government needs to be mucking up. Leave it to the states, and the states that are successful with it are the states that are going to be going forward economically. When you look at Texas now, we've got over 30,000 more licensed physicians than we did when our tort reform was passed in 2003, we've seen access to health care, and that's the big issue for me, is that there are 50 counties of our 254 counties in Texas now that have emergency medical professionals in those counties because of tort reform that's been paid. So if you're a pregnant female, 19 counties more in the state of Texas have OBGYN services. That's the type of access to health care of which we told people would occur. We told them that we would see substantially less litigation, and it's come true. Texas is a real leader in tort reform. If other states want to be competitive, they need to pass that tort reform. If they don't, and they let the trial lawyers continue to drive the train, so to speak, in those states, people will continue to move to Texas in record numbers, and our economy will continue to grow. And those other states will get farther behind economically.
All right, we promised our viewers they could tweet in some questions, and we would ask you. So we want to put up one now about Wendy Davis. Of course, a lot of folks will recognize her as the Democratic lawmaker who tried to filibuster abortion reform laws there in Texas that, among other things, have minimum medical standards for the clinics, those kinds of things as well. Greg Danson tweets in, does Governor Perry think Wendy Davis can win if she runs for governor in Texas?
Yeah. Now, Wendy's a very capable public servant. She just lost her father this last week, and certainly our prayers go out to her during that period of loss. On the political side, Texas is a very conservative state, and Senator Davis is very much left of center on her politics, whatever those might be. She's very much out of the mainstream when it comes to Texas political thought. So, I think that would be, regardless of who the candidate would be, when you have a position that is that far out of the mainstream with most Texans, can be a difficult task at best.
All right, now the question that I always ask you every time I see you was also tweeted in by a lot of folks who knew that you were coming on. This one comes from James Berry. Is there another presidential run in your future, or possibly would you go for the VP slot?
Well, there's 16 more months of being the governor of a great dynamic state. We're going to continue to travel the country and talk about red state versus blue state policies and how that's good for America, these states to compete against each other. So there's a good bit of time in front of us to continue to really push Americans to have this great, I think, constructive, thoughtful, intellectually engaged debate about which one of these policies and which of these policies really work best for America. And in about a year, I'll make a decision on whether I'm going to go forward with another presidential bid or not.
Well, we look forward to having you unveil that on America's News headquarters right here on Fox News. Governor, always good to see you. Thank you so much, and good luck to your Aggies this weekend.
Yep. Come on down, and we look forward to seeing you, hopefully this fall when we have the United States Grand Prix here in Austin.
It's going to be an exciting event, but in the meantime, I'll see you at the Ole Miss Texas A&M game as well in October.
There
Thanks, Governor.
So long.